Meanwhile, we have also received some of the questions. I took a time and published some of those. One question was that who was C. Olsen in Deutsche company? I think it's for you, Donatas.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Who was C. Olsen in Deutsche company?
So it was a joint venture between Lithuanian Norwegian joint venture, and it reflected the name of the foreign capital in the business. So the business became 100% Lithuanian capital and family owned in the 90s. So it reflects that.
Okay, thank you. There is another question I think addressed to you, Donatas. How do you structure old new generation shareholding with Toyos?
So I also have a sister. We managed to convince to join the family business just a year ago. So she was successfully doing the career in different sector. But we are shareholders in the business as well, the new generation as well, and we. In our family constitution and during the process, we clearly outlined the process of ownership transition both to our generation and to the next generations as well.
Thank you. It is a third question to you. How did you determine the rules for allocating ownership?
By discussion and communication. I think there is no best practice and rules of thumb. You know, it depends on. I think it needs to be a very clear dialogue and communication between the old generation and the next one. Why are you doing this? What you want to achieve with that? And effectively, when are you doing this? Because this will happen sooner or later. So I think it's a matter of agreement and communication, which happened in our case as well.
Right. And you continue to be very popular among three of us. Fourth question to you. Are there other family members from new generation too? And what are their roles?
So as I mentioned, my sister joined the family business. So she's a member of a management team and a member of the board as well. And she's responsible for the marketing in our group.
Thank you. Michael, some questions to you. Your presentation was great, it is mentioned. And the question was that how is income from foundation or trust taxable in the UK in hands of individuals? I'm not sure if you can take this question, but if you can, please.
Yes, absolutely. I tried to send a response on the Q&A box. The main problem is that this is quite a complex topic, and we often have like 1 hour presentations at conferences just on this question. Generally speaking, most trusts for international families will not necessarily have a UK-based trustee. So they might apply English law, but the trustee will be based in a more favourable tax jurisdiction. So if the trustee is non-UK, you can often, with some careful planning, you can often, especially if the settlor and the beneficiary are not UK resident or not UK domiciled, you can often shelter the UK income from UK taxation. When some of the beneficiaries are resident, or the settlor even is, the settlor is who sets up the trust effectively. If either the settlor or the beneficiary are not are UK resident instead, then we need to be a bit more careful. So we need to look at whether the trust was set up before those people moved to the UK, and if it's set up once those people are already in the UK, you need to be a bit more careful in segregating the trust income appropriately. basically the short answer is there's many variables. So I really need to give you an answer based on the specific circumstances, but those are the kind of issues you would consider in determining. But as I said, it's more of an issue if either settlor or beneficiary of the assets are situated in the UK. Yeah.
Thank you. There is another question which I think you could also take. The question was about that what minimum of personal wealth you would recommend to structure through trust or foundation. So I think you could have some comment on that.
Yeah, so that is a very good question, and a question we get asked quite often. There's no right or wrong answer, because sometimes there's a perception that to justify a trust or a foundation, I need very valuable assets or I need large amounts of cash. Nowadays, as I mentioned in my presentation, most trusts and foundations are not set up for tax reasons. They set up for, as part of generational planning, as part of governance. And sometimes the assets we put into trust or into a foundation can be very hard to value. Like a family business, it is very difficult sometimes to determine what exactly the value of that business at a specific time is. So I think you need to more, rather than, obviously, you don't want to set up a sophisticated structure if the value is negligible, but often you need to look at what, I think the question more than value is what kind of assets are you settling, and the costs, the fees of trustees and foundation council members will depend not just on the quality of the service provider, but they will also include a responsibility element. So obviously, if the trust asset are shares in the business, those are going to be more complicated and more expensive to administer than just a lot of money sitting in a bank account. So there's so many factors to factor in, and obviously there's a big difference in cost depending on the jurisdiction you pick. Some jurisdictions are traditionally, because they have more of a history of fiduciary services, will be more expensive than others. So there's many variables.
Thank you. That's true, I can confirm. A couple of more questions. Donatas again. It's like it's like a Santa Claus's bag. Whose present is that? Now it's Michael. Now it's Donatas. Okay. How did you put the family constitution into effect that it has legal basis?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and quite complicated one, especially in our legal systems. So I guess if you're not forming a foundation or trust, you cannot maybe implement everything word by word and in our jurisdictions, but you can apply most of it and apply these principles in just a simple corporate structure in our countries. So that's what we did. We decided not to make a foundation or trust in other country, at least for now. Because first of all, we believe in the stability of our countries, and the second, we are not sure about the taxation system in the future. And we incorporated, I would say, 95% of what we drafted in the family constitution just into, let's say, articles of association and shareholder agreement of our legal entities.
And one more, how do you motivate non-family members, since they know upfront that top positions are inherited and not necessarily reflect their competencies? I think it's a good question to both of you. What have you seen in practice? Donatas, maybe you can begin, and then Michael, if you can.
Yeah, so I can talk from our position that, I mean, even how we structure it, that this is not inherited, and anyone could be a manager in our business. I guess what we have inherited is the board membership, but also there's only part of the family members who need to be in the board, And as I mentioned before, you structure it by drafting the criteria for hiring family members into the top positions. Also, we set up a nomination committee for the future, which can have outside participation as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Michael, do you have something to add? What have you seen in your practice?
This is a very good question, because actually this is one of the critical points when I mentioned it even earlier in my presentation about managing external intervention in a family business, because this is one of the most recurrent tensions, where there's a feeling that outside contribution is not adequately appreciated and therefore remunerated and compensated. And there's sometimes a tension. What often that clashes is an issue that often arises in family businesses, is a tension between so-called active family members and non-active or passive family members, which is family members that are actively involved in the management and of the business, so they're the ones effectively doing the day-to-day work, and family members who are maybe shareholders who just sit and wait for their dividend, pretty much. And this is often the reason for tension, and something you would try and deal with in family constitutions and other documents. And where I've seen most issues with non-family members is frustration against the passive family members. They're more willing to accept active family members who are taking personal risk and obviously sacrificing time and providing all their work to the business, and they're very happy for them to be paid and remunerated. The frustration is with the passive family members. And another issue is sometimes when non-family members get involved in the business, especially early in their career, is knowing that possibly their time might come to an end as soon as you get to the generational shift. The new generation might come in, and there might be a spoil system, and they will bring new people in. So that is another time. So it's a very good question, because these are the two sort of junctures that have to be managed most frequently with non-family members.
Maybe I add up to this. It's one of the questions that I mentioned: business first to family first. And I think you need to answer this question, in the beginning.
Yeah, that's right. At the moment, we have no more questions, and we have gone slightly over the time. I think we can finish by now, but dear visitors of our webinar, if you have any more questions, you're always welcome to contact us via mail. We'd be happy to involve Michael. I'm not so sure about Donatas. He has another daily job too to do, but certainly I hope that we could share invaluable information today. If you would like to continue with webinars like this, please also give us a notice. We will be happy to organize some more of them in all the questions which are in your interest. And I thank Michael and Donatas for joining us today and providing us with invaluable insights into the topic. And I think for today we can finish. Thank you.